New study into a groundbreaking gene therapy has shown some remarkable results. It found that patients with lymphoma can turn their own blood cells into an army of cancer killers. In the study, 82% of patients had their cancer shrink by at least half, and more than one-third of patients showed no sign of the disease 6 months after a single treatment. Joining me now from Tampa, Florida is Dr. Fred Locke. He's a medical oncologist from the Moffitt Cancer Centre, and he co-led this study. Good to have you with us this morning.
Great to be here. Thank you.
All right. Walk us through how this treatment works and what does gene therapy really mean?
So this therapy is called CAR T-cell therapy, and it stands for chimeric antigen receptor T-cell therapy. What does that mean? Well, we're taking the T cells out of the patient's peripheral blood. So we all have T lymphocytes or T cells. They circulate in our blood, they hang out in our lymph nodes, and these T cells normally fight infection. We have T cells that recognize the flu, we have T cells that recognize bacteria, and if you get an infection, if you get the flu, your T cells normally recognize those infected cells, they proliferate, they activate, and they kill the infected cells. So with CAR T-cell therapy, we take the T lymphocytes or T cells out of the patient's blood, we ship them to a central manufacturing facility where they're reprogrammed with the CAR, with the chimeric antigen receptor, against one single target. And that target is called CD19. It's on the surface of all B cells, and in this case, the cancerous cells are B cells. And the trial, ZUMA-1, that we're talking about, was testing out CD19-directed CAR T cells for patients with aggressive B-cell lymphomas, like diffuse large B-cell lymphoma, which is one of the most common blood cancers. And we know that based upon historical data, patients with diffuse large B-cell lymphoma who didn't respond to their last chemotherapy treatment or who relapse after standard therapies, they could at best expect about a 25% chance of responding to the next line of standard of care chemotherapy and less than a 10% chance of having a complete response. So in this ZUMA-1 trial, which is the first multi-center study testing out CAR T-cell therapy for aggressive B-cell lymphomas, we know that these overall response rates of over 80% are quite remarkable compared to that 25% historical control. And again, as you mentioned, over a third of patients, almost 40% of patients, remain in complete remission, no sign of lymphoma, 6 months after this single therapy with CAR T cells. And it's quite a remarkable and exciting result, and a testament to the 22 centers. Yeah.
I want to ask you about what the risks are with this.
Absolutely. So it's not without risk. We know that, so this CAR T-cell therapy was really originated at multiple single centers. They tested it out in lymphomas and other B-cell cancers and had remarkable results. And so again, this is the first 22-center trial, or first multi-center trial. We expected to have toxicities based upon those single-center experiences, things like high fevers, something called cytokine release syndrome. There's also the possibility of neurologic toxicity. But the severe toxicity rates are in the 10 to 20% range and are generally reversible. That's not to say it's dangerous therapy. We have 3 out of the 101 patients enrolled onto the trial died of the therapy itself. But we think that the risk to reward benefit is favorable because these patients really have no other options. And so we're quite excited about these results, and it's a testament to all the hard work of the 22 centers.
And doctor, will this treatment be available to the public?
So this clinical trial, the ZUMA-1 trial, was sponsored by a pharmaceutical company called Kite Pharma. They licensed the CAR T-cell therapy from the National Cancer Institute. And it's their responsibility and their interest to get this FDA approved. And so we hope, and these results we think support that, and we hope that it will be available by the end of the year, certainly for all patients with aggressive B-cell lymphomas who aren't responding to their standard of care therapies.
It is absolutely remarkable. Thank you so much for joining us, Dr. Fred Locke, this morning.